I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is BobDecosta, outgoing selectman. Welcome, Bob.
Dan,
nice
thank
to see
you. Thanks for having me.
I thought it'd be good to just get together and let you reflect a little bit on your 6 years now as a
Goes
selectman.
fast.
And you have attended, I presume, your last meeting at this point.
Wednesday night was officially my last meeting. I believe I'm still a selectman until the swearing in on Wednesday.
Right.
But hopefully nothing will arise that I'll have to...
If it hasn't been posted now, it's not going to happen. So what are your overall impressions? How are they different now that you're finished as a selectman and from when you went into office?
I know a lot more about the process now than when I first went in. You know, you kind of try to get an idea. For myself, but prior to running, I went to every FinCom meeting for the year, and that helped tremendously when I got in, but you still have no idea what you're getting into until you actually get there.
What were some of the big surprises?
How slow things happen. And it's not any reason or anyone's fault that causes it. It's just government, and things just don't move quickly as I'd like to see them.
Right.
You know, there's the bidding processes, the fact that you have to appropriate the monies before you can actually do any of the projects. It's backwards from what the real world does, and it's costly to the town, and it's frustrating. You know, we've seen it with every one of these capital projects. You know, we appropriate the money first, then we go to bid. The bids come in higher than the appropriation. We have to come back and get more money.
Well, and you've got a couple of year time lag in there generally.
And then, you know, I think the most frustrating thing for me was our architects and OPMs telling us that we had plenty of money in the appropriation, and then we don't. You know.
Well, the firehouse, of course, is the chief example at the moment, and we could have solved the problem by taking $150,000 or whatever it was from the general fund, and the firehouse would be well underway now.
Yeah, we asked the FinCom for, I think it was $110,000 from the reserve fund, and they said no, so we had to go back to square one.
And you went back to square one, and that has found another way of perhaps doing the construction, and that came in over as well.
Correct. And the Attorney General said that the bid was too restrictive, so we're going to have to rebid it as a conventional frame, but we're going to have to get an appropriation at town meeting, probably in the fall. They'll have a special town meeting and start all over.
And it'll probably end up costing $2 or $3 million more.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we started at 15, we appropriated 17, we're probably close to 20 when it's all done.
From a personal perspective, what do you think, what are you proudest of, and what do you take your greatest satisfaction in?
Well, I feel like I brought the issues of water quality and the waterfront more into the limelight being on the board. Prior to my election there, I mean, Whitey Willauer was very active with Shab and the Shellfish Association, but he wasn't a fisherman, so he didn't really understand a lot of the technical stuff. I'm very proud that we were able to get Shimomonamoy sewered. I think that's really important for the downtown harbor. I'm somewhat disappointed that Matticat didn't get there, but I think there are other ways that we can at least maintain or improve the water quality we have. I've been pushing for the last 6 months to really expedite the permitting to dredge the ditches and the bridges in Long Pond.
Right.
I think at some point here in the near future we should really explore the possibility of opening Long Pond up
At the ocean end.
At the ocean end. I think that would help it tremendously. And I know we're going to get pushback from the state and certain neighborhood associations on that, but I think for the quality of the water in the pond and the creek, I think it would make a big deal. The tank farm coming out of town, I'm pleased that we were able to finally get there. I mean, I'd like to take credit for that, but I can't. There were a lot of people that laid a lot of groundwork on that ahead of time, and there were people that I worked with this time around that really went above and beyond to help us make that happen. So those are the two main things, I think. And there was a
Who's
lot
gonna,
of
who do you see carrying on the water quality torch, so to speak?
Well, Pete Kaiser is our county rep for the fisheries, and
Mhm.
he's not going anywhere.
Right.
And I still am going to
Stay
be there,
involved, yeah.
just on the other side of the desk
Mhm.
now. So I plan to work closely with it. I've talked to Jim, and I told him, anything that comes up, feel free to pick up the phone and call me. I think Matt Fee will. I think Don will, and we'll see who the new members are. This election, I really don't have any idea who's going to get in.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Gino has his own ideas, but we're not going to ask him to share them.
That's the thing. You ask 10 different people on the street, and you don't get a consensus.
That's
so
right.
it's going to be anyone's game, really.
Well, I've interviewed all of them, and a couple of them came out very well in the interviews, and others not so well. But it will be an interesting evening Tuesday night when we get the results.
Yeah, it will.
What are your disappointments?
Well, not suing Madigan for one. The island home, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think the difficulties with appropriations, capital improvements, are a lack of trying to house our good qualified people. I mean, the town still doesn't have a procurement officer.
Right.
It's been a year.
That's right.
Because we can't find someone that's qualified to do it that can afford to live here. The town needs housing for its own employees.
Right.
And we wanted to earmark some of the housing from this project on Tacoma Way, and we're told that we can't, that because of the fair housing laws, we have to open it up to everyone. I think that's a problem. Key people in this town we should have housing for. Most businesses supply housing to their upper management. We should do the same. So that's frustrating. I was frustrated by just the sheer mass of volume of stuff that the Board of Selectmen has to deal with on a daily basis or a monthly basis.
For a policy group, there's a lot of minutia.
I mean, I have been fortunate enough to get to know some selectmen from off island, and I talked to them about what their time commitment is and how many meetings they have, and it's amazing the difference between here and there. But we're also an $80 million corporation. We're not a small little town that has a $14 or $15 million budget.
Right.
So it's a commitment time-wise. I think that the town should really start to look in the near future at another form of government. I think it's time for a representative town meeting. I looked at Saturday, and 500 people decided the fate of 9,000 voters. And my concern with the island home is that we'll come back in a year or two or three with a plan to somehow jam this thing into the present location, and the price tag is going to be north of 40 million, and
if it isn't already,
it'll pass town meeting, and it will never pass the ballot. I mean, and I feel like I have a pretty good pulse of what happens in town for people who vote but don't go to town meeting, and no one was supportive of a $40 million facility. So we'll see. I hope
you think a $30 million would have gotten through the ballot if it got past town meeting?
Possibly. Because all the argument was there. You build it here, it's the cheapest possible way, it's the quickest, it's the most convenient,
least disruptive, and all that.
So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on in town, a lot of expenditures that we're going to start to see on our taxes here soon. The new school, the new sewer project, new fire station. At some point, we're going to need to do something with 2 fairgrounds.
And the town building and all that.
Yeah. So
what advice do you have for your successors?
My advice for my successors would be to make sure you're fully briefed before you make decisions. That was the one thing that I kind of prided myself on, was that I took the time to become informed. You know, the wind turbine in Matticat, the water quality issues. You know, what will happen if we do it this way or we do it that way. Don't just think you know everything. There's a lot of, you know, people ask me what was a time commitment to be a selectman, and I used to say, you know, it's 25, 30 hours a week. The running joke in my family is I haven't read a book in 6 years. Everything I read now says Town of Nantucket on it. But you have to know what's going on. And then to rely on some of your subcommittees. You know, the Finance Department Committee does a great job with the budget. I peruse the budget, but I don't go into it with the technical aspect that they do. And town management is great. Libby's great. Greg's great. The whole staff down there. So rely on them. Let them do their job. Don't overmanage the town. So,
isn't there? I mean, I've heard this and noticed this before. Not recently. It hasn't come to my attention, but I've been occupied with other things too. And that there has been a tendency on the part of the board to micromanage the town management.
It all depends on what the board is, the makeup of the board. When I first got on the board, I think that was the case. And then the board shifted. And I know that when Patty and myself and Bruce Miller were on the board, we let management manage. The board that's there now, I think, does a pretty good job of that. You know, I looked at it as if the town's a corporation, the town manager's a CEO, and we're the board of directors. You know, the board of directors of a company doesn't get into the minutia of how the company's run. They look at the overall picture. That's what we're really there for. But at the same time, we're firemen. You know, we're there to put out fires. We're there to come up with solutions. And I always, you know, I remember like a year or two into the job when we had the big nightmare was the triathlon and the road closings and everything else. And I looked at it and said, all right, well, you know, there's got to be a solution here. So I called up Mr. Rainey and said, how about if you have your run early in the morning? And he said, well, we don't mind. Let me pool my runners, you know. And they all said, well, we don't mind. We're up early and it's cooler. So, you know, the last couple of years, that race has not really been an issue. We worked it out. The road is only closed till 8 o'clock. People can still get to the dump in the boat, and it's not that nightmare that it was, you know. And I remember the quote that says, if it's called common sense, why is it so rare? I see that a lot in government. You know, my solution to a lot of the problems was, look, let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll change it, but not just to study it and study it and study it to death, you know.
The challenges facing the town obviously include these financial issues that we've talked about, infrastructure issues, but we haven't talked about the landfill at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of waste options. It's pretty obvious from the boats that I've taken over the years. You know, I wish that we had explored the option of a transfer station more back when we first did the composting plant, but we wanted to be, you know, revolutionary and green, and I think we're at a point now where we shouldn't be burying our garbage here anymore.
What about gasification?
Gasification would be great if
that was one of the things they talked about.
Right. I mean, I looked at that a lot, and there's quite a few people on the island that are very knowledgeable about it. The problem is the DEP hasn't approved it yet, but you know, you take all that C&D waste and that plastic that we have to screen out of the landfill, that's perfect fuel for gasification. We could be creating our own electricity with a gasification plant. But until the state gets on board with it more, we're kind of it's in limbo.
Mercy,
right?
Yeah. So what's next on your agenda? Sleeping late?
No, yeah.
Going to the movies on Wednesday nights?
No, you know, I'm still going to be pushing very hard on the fishery stuff. I'm this squid issue and this dragger
we haven't
fleet.
talked. We should talk about that for a minute.
That's really going to be high on my agenda right now. You know, I want to start with getting the state waters closed south of the island, and then ideally we want to try
Because the issue just simply is that
it's overfishing of a forage fish. You know, we've already lost our herring population to overfishing around the island, and now we're getting to the point we're going to lose the squid fishery. You know, there was a quick short is between the state waters and federal waters within 7 miles of Nantucket last summer in the trimester 2, which is they break it up into 3 trimesters. So the middle trimester, which is the summer months, there was 19 million pounds of squid taken from the waters within 7 miles of Nantucket. The bycatch ratio on that is for every 100 pounds of squid they catch, it's 56 pounds of bycatch. That's 10,750,000 pounds of bycatch. And where they're towing these nets for these squid is a major spawning ground for these squid. And they're ripping the egg sacs right out of the bottom.
Right.
And it
Kills them.
it kills them.
Right.
None of those egg sacs survive. So, you know, squid has a very short lifespan, 12 months. And so in theory, you could completely wipe out a biomass in one season of overfishing.
Why is the state so reluctant to help us protect that fishery?
You know,
And all of the ancillary.
it's about money. It's big business for the dragger industry. You know, the fisheries have been mismanaged through the federal government for the last 20 years. The cod stocks are at all-time lows.
At least that long.
Yeah, and this is one of the last fisheries that they look at as profitable. So that's the other problem, is all these guys that used to do these other fisheries now are getting into this fishery, and it's creating even more pressure. And, you know, they got to give these guys something to fish for. That's the short answer. But, you know, it's a fight that we know we got a long road ahead of us, but we're not giving up. So,
who else is sort of involved in this?
Pete Kaiser's involved.
I mean, do we have any support from away from Nantucket?
Oh yeah, we do. The Selectmen's Association of the Cape and Islands voted to support this. We have support from fisheries communities all up and down Massachusetts. See, what a lot of people don't realize is 90% of the coastal communities already have this closure. Right. Nantucket and the Vineyard do not. For whatever reason, they can't even tell us why. They go back to this law that was put in place in 1938, and for some reason, when they protected all these other towns, they didn't protect the Cape and Island, Nantucket and the Vineyard.
And the Vineyard probably said, "We don't need it."
Yeah. It might have something to do with the whole ownership of the waters around the island, because, you know, according to Matt Fee, when he's looked back into the old papers of when the state was New York, when the state of New York owned Nantucket, they gave the proprietors 30 rods around the island of water. So it's something like, I don't know what the distance is, but it's like 20 miles. That supposedly the island had control over the waters around Nantucket. You know, there's the short answer is we're in for a battle, and we're just going to keep fighting. You know, the squeaky wheel deal. So we had that public hearing here last week. A lot of people attended. A lot of great comments were made. But it's up to Division of Marine Fisheries, mainly Dr. Pierce, and right now he's saying that he doesn't see any problem. So now we've got an article in front of the state legislature that's co-sponsored by our representatives to get it done legislatively. I'm sure that's going to have an uphill battle, because the last thing the state wants to do, the fisheries department of the state wants to do, is to have a regulation that was put in place legislatively. They want to do it through themselves. So we'll see. But we're not giving up. We're going to form a nonprofit and raise some money and get a lobbyist and do what the commercial fleet has done for the last 20 years.
Good. What else? What else has he got on your?
You know, it's getting into summer mode, so time to start getting ready to go fishing. It'll be nice to not have to worry about rushing off the boat on Wednesdays. And then, you know, next winter I plan to do a little more traveling. You know, I want to spend more time up north, and that's the main reason I didn't run again. Was I wouldn't have been comfortable being a selectman and being gone for 3 weeks or a month. I don't think it's fair to the voters. And if you commit to running for an office, you need to be here. So,
well, thank you very much for your service to
that was
the
my
town
pleasure.
And to all of us, Bob DeCosta, and best of luck to you. And
Thanks,
I'm
Dan.
sure we'll be hearing from you again.
Yeah, I'm just moving from one side of the desk to the other. That's all.